1. A person can only be who he really is when he is alone. A person who likes to be alone and who enjoys being alone is a person of a brilliant mind. They take two advantages from solitude. One is the advantage of not being with others, and the other is the advantage of being with oneself. A lonely person is obsessed with human relationships and does not take his mind and heart away from unimportant things. Their solitude exists here, and this is their strength. The thoughts and plans of a person who thinks alone are not well understood by others. Just as only a genius recognizes a genius, only the truly free alone can recognize a deep thinker. Instead of wasting time dwelling on relationships with others, devote all of your accumulated mental energy to listening to your inner voice. People who make solitude their companion have high ideals. They strive to realize their ideals on earth. However, the reality is far from ideal. Those who live with a high ideal star in their hearts are bound to be lonely. Man finally comes to know himself through being alone. If a man does not know the value of solitude, he will not know the value of freedom either. Because man can only feel true freedom when he is alone. A person can reach the most harmonious state only when he is with himself. It is only when you are alone that you can achieve true peace and stability of mind. A wise person enjoys the life given to him in his solitude. But foolish people are afraid of the boredom of solitude. So, every time, they try to get drunk with low-grade pleasure for a short time. This light and impatient desire for pleasure causes us to get caught up in all sorts of troubles and plunge us into its dark whirlpool. A person's life is like a pendulum, swinging back and forth between pain and boredom. If these two things are not balanced, you will lose yourself and be shaken, or you will waste precious time that you can suddenly contemplate alone. Human beings are inherently lonely, but all outstanding people are exceptionally lonely. Solitude is their destiny. Those who want to live life deeply must be prepared to be alone. We need to understand that greatness in life is born in loneliness. 2. I need to practice being free from others. The more the habit of giving importance to other people's eyes hardens, the more harmful and unfavorable life becomes. Almost all of our anguish comes from worrying about what other people will think of us. The moment I become conscious of other people's eyes, my calm mood is disturbed and anxiety begins to dominate me. This is the moment when the standard of my happiness is suddenly controlled by others. Take it lightly when you receive praise, and take it lightly when you receive criticisms. It may be like a cloud that disperses when you blow praise. Criticism may be made by a person with a shallow way of thinking, or a narrow opinion and poor thinking. People who don't care about others and don't care what others know are much happier. People who are constantly conscious of the gaze of others are only slaves to others. Slaves are always bound by their masters. Watch his eyes and live according to his orders. If the standards of others are important, it is only their no after all. Get out of the eyes of others as soon as possible and be alone. In order to be happy, you must make a clear distinction between your true self and yourself in the eyes of others. After all, Human happiness depends on how well one can endure alone. Appreciate the time you are alone, and put the time on your side. Try to develop and grow yourself in the time of solitude. Don't try to fill your loneliness with others, but be your own friend first. Become a person who can be happy with just a small change in behavior. By exploring what you really want, and when you are happy, when you have the look you want, your beauty will shine and people will gather around you even if you don't show off. When I become a flower, butterflies naturally come to me. 3. Life is a journey to a destination alone. Human life is not influenced by external factors, but originates from within oneself. People are free to make choices in their lives, and those choices determine their own lives. However, this freedom and choice also accompanies loneliness, because almost all the problems we face in life are ambiguous, and the future is unpredictable. At that time, I was convinced that it was the best solution and boldly pursued it. But over time it can become the worst decision. Also, my freedom can be limited at any time in unavoidable situations. And there is no guarantee that my choices will always bring satisfaction and happiness. So these choices can sometimes be difficult and painful. In order to escape from this pain, you must analyze and judge the situation and make the best choice, rather than impulsively following your desires. The first 40 years of his life is a novel. He writes himself, and the remaining 30 years is the time to comment on the novel. The younger you are, the more you have to live to include a new world and a wide range of stories, and the older you are, the more you have to capture the depth of your qualities and experiences. Whether a book called I will be talked about in people's minds and become a masterpiece that you want to see forever, or disappear in the flow of time, is entirely up to you. Life is the sum of the days. How I live my day comes down to how I live my life. People who have experienced setbacks have their own history and enter the path of wisdom that can give insight into life. Things you thought were burdens of life can become the basis of life. Be willing to do what you can and endure what you have to endure. We should live the life we can live, not the life we want to live. 4. Happiness can only be achieved alone. Happiness is temporary and capricious. People seek happiness and feel satisfied when they attain it. But that satisfaction is temporary and unstable. In the end, when happiness leaves, you feel sadness and anxiety. Therefore, the pursuit of happiness may rather bring us unhappiness. The moment we pursue happiness, we become afraid of losing it. And that fear leads us into an unstable and unhappy state. It's like when we have someone we love, we fear losing that person. So, rather than pursuing happiness, it becomes more important to cultivate the capacity for unhappiness. Unhappiness and pain are tools for human growth. Unhappiness brings us maturity. Remember that people don't feel their limits when they're happy. And most of them don't have the ability to respond positively when problems arise. But when unhappiness and pain finally come, you realize your limitations and put more effort into solving the problem. There are many people whose spirits are stronger than those who have not suffered through many hardships in life. In this way, through unhappiness and pain, one can explore one's inner self deeply and develop oneself. This is paradoxically called the wisdom of misfortune. Through experiences and realizations gained from experiencing human misfortune, we can understand the meaning and purpose of life more deeply. The key to happiness is to unleash your potential through personal growth and development. Anyone can feel true happiness by exercising their abilities to the maximum and satisfying their inner desires. In order to achieve this kind of self-realization, I have to constantly and tenaciously observe myself. In order to do that, I have to stop being conscious of the eyes of others, stop dwelling on human relationships, and focus solely on my own voice. He who knows others is only wise, but he who knows himself is prudent. This is a task that must be done alone, not for someone else to do for you. On the other hand, there are things that can make us happy more easily. These are the mundane things of everyday life that can usually be done alone. Things like reading a book alone without meeting anyone, listening to music, enjoying meditation, sweeping the yard, and looking at flowers. The more you focus on small things rather than pursuing something broad and big, the narrower the range of action is, the greater the size of your happiness. When you look at the world broadly, your desire grows. The wider the field of view and the range of action, the greater the desire. The more you do, the more anxiety and worry you have to achieve your desires and desires. Many people who have a lot of wealth consider themselves unhappy. Because they pay attention to the externals of spiritual riches, they often have empty souls. Even if they possess a lot of wealth, pleasure and dissipation are a kind of boredom that comes from poverty of mind. These people appear to be wealthy on the outside, but on the inside, they are very poor. What separates human happiness from unhappiness is not something objective. It just depends on how we feel and accept it. The more you understand your inner self, the closer you can get to the land of happiness. Happiness exists only for those who are satisfied with themselves. Today, we learned about German philosopher Schopenhauer's theory of life and happiness. He presented a philosophy emphasizing the nature of life and the human suffering that comes from that nature. His theory of life and happiness are sometimes thought of as melancholy philosophies. But if you look deeper into them, there are many parts that resonate deeply. In Schopenhauer's philosophy, overcoming one's own difficulties and understanding and developing one's consciousness is the meaning of human life. I'm talking. Through this, humans can fill their lives more meaningfully. Be happy today.